The figure on highway. Nine Rain had a way of making northern Scotland feel older than the rest of the world. Not simply old in the ordinary sense, but ancient, like the land itself remembered things humanity had tried very hard to forget. That night, the rain came softly. Thin silver streaks drifted across the windshield of Elias Mercer's delivery van, while the wipers moved back and forth with mechanical exhaustion. Beyond the glass stretched Highway 9, a lonely road cutting through endless hills, black pine forests, and cliffs that vanished into darkness. There were no other cars, no lights, no signs of civilization, only the distant glow of his headlights dissolving into the wet night. Elias adjusted his grip on the steering wheel and glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 2:03 a.m. He hated that hour. There was something wrong about the world after 2 in the morning. Everything felt suspended between reality and dream, as though God briefly stopped watching the earth. The radio crackled beside him. Static. Then music. Then static again. Heavy fog warning across the highlands tonight. The broadcaster's voice faded in and out like a dying memory. Drivers are advised not to stop along Highway 9 under any circumstances. Elias smirked tiredly. Dramatic, he muttered. His voice sounded strange inside the van. Hollow, like the vehicle was larger than it should have been. He reached for the coffee beside him. Cold. Of course it was cold. Everything in his life eventually became cold. Outside rainwater shimmered across the empty asphalt like spilled oil. Elias had driven this route dozens of times over the years. Edinburgh to Inverness. Inverness back to Glasgow. Endless deliveries. Endless nights. He used to enjoy driving once. Back before silence became unbearable. Back before he learned how loud loneliness could be. A photograph rested beside the gear shift. A woman smiling beneath pale summer sunlight. Clara. Even now, 3 years after her death, Elias still couldn't look at the photograph for very long. There was too much life in her eyes. Too much warmth. It made the emptiness beside him harder to endure. The radio hissed violently. Elias flinched. Then came a voice. Low. Distorted. Almost drowned beneath static. Turned back. His eyes narrowed. What static swallowed the words instantly? He exhaled slowly and rubbed his tired face. 14 hours awake. That was the problem. Lack of sleep had become normal after Clara died. Doctors called it trauma-induced insomnia. Elias called it punishment. He drove another mile. Then another. Rain became fog. At first it appeared in harmless strands drifting across the road, but within minutes it thickened into something unnatural. Dense white walls swallowed the landscape entirely. His headlights barely pierced a few meters ahead. The world disappeared. Elias slowed the van. 40 miles per hour. Then 30. His stomach tightened uneasily. This fog felt wrong. Not because it was thick. Scotland had always been full of fog. No. This fog felt alive. It moved strangely, like breathing. He checked his GPS. Frozen. The screen showed his van standing perfectly still, despite the road moving beneath him. Wonderful. No signal. No map. No stars above. Only whiteness. The radio emitted another burst of static. If you see someone in the fog. The voice cut out. Elias stared at the radio. What? Silence. Then music resumed as if nothing had happened. A cold sensation crawled slowly down his spine. For the first time that night, Elias considered pulling over. But something deep inside him resisted the idea immediately. Don't stop. The thought arrived instinctively. Sharp. Urgent. He kept driving. The fog thickened further. The trees along the roadside became distorted shadows, stretching like skeletal fingers toward the road. The world no longer felt real. It felt staged, like a memory trying to reconstruct itself. Then Elias saw him. A figure standing beside the road. Motionless. Tall. Dressed in a long black coat darkened by rain. Elias instinctively eased off the accelerator. The man stood perfectly still at the edge of the fog with his face lowered toward the ground. No umbrella. No flashlight. No car nearby. Nothing. Just a solitary figure standing in the middle of nowhere at 2 in the morning. What the hell? Elias slowed further as he approached. The figure never moved. Not even slightly. No reaction to the approaching headlights. No wave for help. No turning of the head. Just stillness. As the van passed, Elias glanced sideways. He caught only fragments through the rain-streaked window. Pale skin, dark hair, thin mouth, and eyes hidden beneath shadow. Then the man vanished behind the fog. Elias swallowed hard. His pulse had quickened unexpectedly. Maybe someone stranded. Maybe drunk. Maybe mentally ill. There were rational explanations. There always had to be rational explanations. Still, something about the encounter disturbed him deeply, because the man hadn't looked human in the normal sense. He had looked empty, like a photograph of a person rather than a living one. The road curved sharply left. Trees swallowed the highway entirely now. The fog became so dense, Elias could barely see the center lines. Rain hammered softly against the roof of the van. Minutes passed, or perhaps longer. Time itself felt uncertain inside the whiteness. Then the radio crackled again. Elias. His blood froze instantly. The voice had spoken his name. Clear. Whispering. He jerked toward the radio. Only static. Nothing else. No, he whispered to himself. No, I'm tired. That's all. But his hands trembled slightly on the wheel now. The dashboard clock flickered. 2:17 a.m. Then flickered again. 2:17. Again. 2:17. The numbers stopped changing. Elias stared at them. A terrible feeling settled slowly into his chest. The van continued moving, but time no longer did. Then headlights illuminated another figure ahead. Elias's breath caught. The same man, standing closer to the road now. Much closer. This time his face was lifted slightly, watching the van approach. No. Elias felt genuine fear for the first time that night. There was no possible way the man could be here again. No roads intersected Highway 9 for miles. No vehicle had passed him. No human being could have traveled ahead, unnoticed through this fog. Yet there he stood, waiting. The van rolled closer, closer. The man's pale face slowly became visible beneath the rain. Elias felt his stomach twist violently, because the face looked familiar. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to trigger something buried deep inside his memory. The man turned his head as Elias passed. Their eyes met. White. The man's eyes were completely white. Not blind. Not cloudy. White like winter sky. Elias slammed his foot onto the accelerator instinctively. The van surged forward through the fog. His heartbeat thundered violently inside his chest now. What the hell is happening? The road blurred ahead. His breathing became uneven. He checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Only fog. Then static erupted violently through the speakers. A horrible screeching sound filled the van. Elias grabbed the radio desperately. Stop. The noise suddenly died. Silence returned. Then came breathing. Slow. Wet. Close. Not from the radio. From inside the van. Elias froze completely. He listened carefully, breathing. Behind him. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the seats. His entire body turned cold. Don't look. The thought came instantly. Primal. Absolute. Do not look behind you. His fingers tightened painfully around the steering wheel. The breathing stopped. Silence. Then tap. Something struck the rear window softly. Elias nearly lost control of the van. Another tap. Then another. Like fingers. He stared ahead desperately. The fog outside had become impossibly thick now. The world no longer existed beyond the headlights. Only the road remained, and whatever was inside the van with him. The dashboard clock flickered again. 2:17 a.m. Still. Unmoving. Elias's chest tightened painfully. He remembered another road. Another rainy night. Clara laughing softly beside him. Then headlights. Screaming metal. Blood. His vision blurred suddenly. No. Another memory flashed violently through his mind. A figure standing in fog near the wreckage. Watching him. Waiting. Elias gasped sharply and nearly drifted into the opposite lane. The radio turned on by itself. A voice whispered through static. You left her there. Elias slammed the radio off instantly. Silence returned. but tears had appeared in his eyes without warning. "No," he whispered shakily. The voice came again, this time from the back seat. "You left her there." Elias's entire body locked in terror. He stared forward rigidly. He could feel something sitting behind him now, watching, breathing softly. The temperature inside the van dropped sharply. Cold mist crept across the inside of the windows. Then, slowly, very slowly, a reflection appeared in the rearview mirror. A pale face, wet dark hair, white eyes staring directly at him. Elias screamed and swerved violently. The van skidded across wet asphalt. Gides schriegt. For one horrifying second, the vehicle nearly spun off the road entirely, but Elias regained control. Panting, sweating, terrified. The mirror was empty again. Nothing behind him. Nothing at all. "I'm hallucinating." He said it aloud desperately, trying to make it true. Sleep deprivation. Stress. Trauma. But deep down, he already knew. Something was terribly wrong with Highway 9. Then headlights illuminated a shape ahead. Elias's blood turned to ice. The man stood directly in the center of the road now, waiting, motionless beneath the rain, closer than ever before. And this time, he was smiling. The van slowed involuntarily. Elias could not breathe. The man slowly raised one pale hand and pointed directly at the passenger seat beside Elias. Elias turned instinctively. The seat was empty, but wet, as though someone had been sitting there moments earlier. Then the radio whispered one final sentence through crackling static. "Look behind you." Elias did, and saw the man sitting in the back seat, smiling inches from his face. The passenger. Elias screamed so violently that his throat tore raw. The van swerved across the wet road, its tires shrieking against the black ribbon of Highway 9. For one impossible second, the world outside became nothing but spinning fog rain and the fractured glow of his own headlights. His hands fought the wheel with blind desperation. Knuckles, white lungs, burning heart, hammering like something trapped beneath the floorboards of his chest. In the rearview mirror, the man was gone. The back seat was empty. Only darkness remained there, folded neatly between the metal walls of the van. Elias slammed his foot on the brake. The vehicle stopped with a violent shudder. For a while, he did not move. Rain tapped on the roof. The engine trembled softly. The windshield wipers dragged themselves left and right, as if they too were exhausted by the night. Elias stared into the fog ahead. Nothing moved. No man in the road. No figure at the window. No white eyes. Only Highway 9 disappearing into a depthless wall of gray. His breath came in broken bursts. "Not real," he whispered. But the words had no strength. He slowly turned and looked over his shoulder. The back seat was empty. Completely empty. Yet the leather was wet. A dark patch of water glistened across it, spreading slowly as though someone soaked from rain had been sitting there only moments before. Elias felt something inside him collapse. He reached for the door handle, threw the door open and stumbled out into the night. Cold rain struck his face like needles. He nearly fell to his knees on the roadside, gasping, one hand pressed against the side of the van to steady himself. The fog surrounded him instantly, closing around his body like breath from some enormous unseen mouth. The silence outside was worse than inside. There were no birds, no distant cars, no wind in the trees, only rain. And beneath it, almost too low to hear the faint crackle of the van radio still hissing through the open door. Elias forced himself to walk around the van. The rear bumper was untouched. The side panels were clean. No dents. No blood. No handprints. Nothing. He almost laughed, but the sound died before it reached his mouth. Then he saw the passenger window. From the inside, written through the mist on the glass, were 4 words. "You left her there." Elias staggered backward. "No." His voice broke. "No, I didn't." But memory rose inside him like black water. A road. Rain. Clara's hand on his arm. Her voice saying his name. Headlights appearing too suddenly. The world turning upside down. Then silence. Terrible silence. Elias squeezed his eyes shut until sparks burst behind them. When he opened them again, the words were gone. The window was clear. He stood alone in the rain, trembling like a child. The van radio crackled louder. A voice emerged. Not the broadcaster. Not the man. Clara. Elias. He froze. The name floated through the night, soft and distant, filled with the same sadness he had heard in her voice during their last winter together. He turned slowly toward the van. The radio whispered again. Elias. Please. His body moved before his mind agreed. He climbed back inside, slammed the door, and grabbed the radio dial. Static burst from the speakers. Clara-only noise answered. Then a station tuned itself into place. Old music filled the van. A piano piece. Soft, melancholic. Elias knew it instantly. Clara used to play it in their flat on Sunday mornings barefoot in the kitchen, smiling over her shoulder while coffee burned on the stove. The memory struck him harder than terror. For a moment, he was not on Highway 9. He was back in their small apartment in York, watching pale sunlight crawl across Clara's hair. She was alive there. Warm. Laughing. Real. Then the music warped. The notes slowed. The melody sank into something diseased, and Clara's voice whispered through it. You should have stopped. Elias slammed the radio off. The van became silent again. His hands shook so badly he could barely put it into drive. He had only one thought now. Get off the road. Find people. Find light. Find proof that the world still existed beyond this fog. He drove forward, slow at first, then faster. The fog pressed against the windshield. Every few seconds, the headlights revealed the same details: wet asphalt, pale lane markings, black trees leaning inward like witnesses. After several minutes, he saw a glow ahead. A petrol station. Its sign flickered weakly through the mist. Elias nearly sobbed from relief. He pulled in beneath the rusted canopy and stopped beside an old pump. The station looked forgotten by time. The windows were dark. The paint peeled from the walls. A single yellow light buzzed above the entrance. Still, it was a building. A place. Something human. Elias stepped out and hurried to the door. Locked. He cupped his hands against the glass and peered inside. Empty shelves. Dust. A dead refrigerator. A calendar hanging crooked behind the counter. The year printed on it was 2019. Elias stepped back. His mouth went dry. 2019 was the year Clara died. A buzzing sound came from above him. He looked up at the station clock, mounted over the door. 2:17 a.m. The same time. Always the same time. No. He pulled out his phone. No signal. Battery 17%. The screen flickered. For one brief second, the wallpaper changed. It was a photograph of Clara in the passenger seat of his old car smiling at him. Then the image distorted. Her face blurred. Her eyes turned white. The phone went black. Elias hurled it against the ground. It shattered across the wet concrete. Immediately, from inside the locked petrol station, a phone began to ring. Elias stopped breathing. The ringing echoed from the counter inside. 1 ring. 2. 3. He backed away. The station door clicked. Unlocked. It opened inward by itself. Darkness waited beyond it. Elias knew he should run. Every instinct in him screamed against entering. But beneath the fear was something stronger. The possibility of Clara. He stepped inside. The air smelled of mold dust and old rainwater. His shoes squeaked softly against the dirty floor. The ringing phone sat on the counter, black and ancient, its cord curled like a dead snake. Elias approached it. His hand hovered above the receiver. Then he picked it up. For a moment, there was only static. Then Clara spoke. "Why did you leave me in the car?" Elias shut his eyes. Tears spilled down his face. "I didn't," he whispered. "I tried. I swear. I tried. You walked away. No. You heard me. I couldn't move. You heard me calling." His chest tightened until he thought his ribs would break. "I don't remember." A pause. Then Clara's voice changed. It became colder. Closer. "You don't want to remember." The lights in the petrol station flickered violently. Behind the counter, the old calendar pages began to flutter, though there was no wind. September. October. November. December. Then back again. 2019. 2020. 2021. Elias dropped the phone. It swung from the cord, tapping against the counter. Tap. 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 like fingers on glass. He turned toward the door. A man stood outside beneath the petrol station light. The same black coat, the same pale face, the same white eyes. But now Elias could see him clearly, and the face was his own. Older, drowned, ruined by grief. Elias stumbled backward into a shelf. Empty cans clattered to the floor. The man outside raised one hand and pointed toward the van. Elias looked. Someone was sitting in the passenger seat. Not the man. A woman. Her hair dark with rain, her head turned away. Clara. Elias ran. He burst out of the petrol station and across the forecourt, slipping on wet concrete, nearly falling, calling her name like a prayer. Clara. He reached the van and tore open the passenger door. The seat was empty, but the seatbelt was fastened around nothing, and the air smelled faintly of her perfume. Lavender and smoke. The scent broke him. He leaned into the van shaking, unable to stop himself from crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Behind him a voice said, "Not yet." Elias turned. The man was gone. The petrol station light exploded above him. Glass rained down in glittering fragments. Darkness swallowed the forecourt. Elias jumped into the van and locked the doors. He started the engine with trembling hands and drove back onto Highway 9. The road welcomed him like a mouth. For a long while he drove without speaking. The fog seemed thinner now, but that only made the shadows between the trees more visible. Several times Elias thought he saw figures standing among them, silent shapes watching from the darkness. His mind began to unravel around the edges. He no longer knew how long he had been driving. Minutes, hours, years. Every road sign said the same thing. Highway 9, 12 miles. Again, again, again. He passed the same broken fence 3 times. The same dead fox on the roadside. The same crooked tree bent over the asphalt like an old woman grieving. At last the radio turned itself on again. This time the voice was Elias's own. "You should have died that night." He gripped the wheel. "Stop. You should have died with her. Stop. You did." The van lights flickered. For a second, the windshield was no longer filled with fog. It was filled with fire. Flames climbed across shattered glass. Rain hissed against burning metal. Clara screamed his name. Elias screamed back. Then the vision vanished. The road returned, but now the passenger seat was no longer empty. A shape sat beside him. Still, wet, waiting. Elias could see it from the corner of his eye. He kept staring forward. His breath became shallow. The figure did not move. The van grew colder. Mist crawled across the dashboard. Slowly, the seatbelt clicked open. Elias clenched his teeth. A hand rested gently on his shoulder. It was ice cold. He finally turned. The man sat in the passenger seat, his dead white eyes fixed on Elias. His ruined face was both stranger and mirror. When he spoke, his voice was not loud. It was almost tender. "Do you remember now?" Elias could not answer. Ahead the fog opened. For the first time he saw what waited in the road. A wrecked car, upside down, burning silently in the rain. And beside it, a woman trapped inside, reaching one blood-covered hand toward him. Clara. The steering wheel slipped from Elias's hands. The van lunged forward into the white darkness, and Highway 9 disappeared beneath him. The road that never ends. The van disappeared into whiteness. For a moment, Elias felt neither motion nor impact. There was only silence. Not ordinary silence, the kind that exists in empty churches or abandoned houses, but something deeper, something endless. A silence so complete it felt older than sound itself. Then came the rain. Soft at first, tiny droplets touching his face. Elias opened his eyes slowly. He was lying on wet asphalt. The fog stretched infinitely around him, pale and luminous beneath the darkness of the sky. Rain drifted through it in silver threads. Somewhere far away, metal groaned softly like the remains of a dying machine settling into stillness. Elias pushed himself upright. Pain rushed through his body. His hands trembled violently. The van was gone. Highway 9 stood empty before him. No headlights, no engine, no wreckage. Nothing, except the road vanishing into the fog ahead. He turned slowly in every direction, The world looked wrong. The trees along the roadside seemed faded, almost transparent. The rain made no sound when it touched the ground. Even the air itself felt unreal, cold and thin, like breath inside a grave. Then Elias noticed something beside the road, a wooden sign half swallowed by weeds. Highway 9 Memorial Route. Below it were dozens of names carved into the wood, people who had died there. The dates stretched across decades. 1971, 1972, 1973, 1974, 1975. Elias stared at the final date. His chest tightened. 2019, the year Clara died, the year everything inside him began rotting. A terrible understanding moved slowly beneath his thoughts too large to fully comprehend. No, he stepped backward. The fog shifted gently behind him. A figure stood there, the man in the black coat, motionless, white eyes fixed upon him. Elias did not scream this time. He was too exhausted for fear. "What are you?" he whispered. The man tilted his head slightly. Rain passed through him. Not around him, through him. Like smoke wearing the shape of a person. "You know what I am," the figure replied softly. The voice sounded exactly like Elias's own. Older, colder, dead. Elias shook his head violently. "No, you've always known." The fog deepened around them, and suddenly Elias remembered something he had spent years trying to bury. Not the crash, the moments after. He remembered crawling from the wreckage with blood pouring down his face. He remembered rain falling onto shattered glass. He remembered hearing Clara screaming his name from inside the overturned car, and he remembered walking away. Not far, only a few steps, but enough to leave her behind while fire slowly consumed the wreck. Elias stumbled backward again. "No!" Tears filled his eyes instantly. "No, I tried to help her. You ran." The words struck harder than any knife. Elias's breathing broke apart. "I was dying. So was she." The fog swallowed the road entirely now. Highway 9 no longer looked connected to the world. It looked suspended in emptiness, floating between life and something beyond it. Elias covered his face with trembling hands. He remembered Clara screaming. He remembered the smell of gasoline. He remembered fear overtaking love. And worst of all, he remembered choosing himself. The man stepped closer. Every movement felt unnatural, like memory rather than flesh. "You never left Highway 9, Elias. No, you died here." The world shifted. Suddenly, the fog parted. Elias found himself standing beside the wreck. The real wreck. His old car lay upside down beneath the cliffs, twisted beyond recognition. Flames crawled weakly through the rainwater pooled around it. Smoke drifted upward into darkness. And there, inside the shattered vehicle, was Clara. Alive, bleeding, reaching toward him. Elias. Her voice shattered what remained of him. He rushed toward the wreck, instinctively slipping in mud and broken glass. Clara. But when he reached the car, his hands passed through the metal. Like smoke, like dream. Elias froze. His body was translucent. The rain moved through him. No. He looked down at his hands. They barely existed. Fragments of memory shaped like flesh. Behind him, the man spoke quietly. "This is where you stay." Elias turned slowly. "What are you?" The figure stared at him with infinite sadness. "I am what remains of you." The truth finally emerged fully then. The figure was not haunting Highway 9. Elias was. The man in the fog was the part of him that remembered the truth. The part trapped, forever replaying the final night of his life. Every journey, every sighting, every whisper on the radio. It had all been Elias trying to force himself to remember what really happened. Because guilt was stronger than death, Elias dropped to his knees beside the wreck. Clara continued reaching toward him from inside the burning car. "Please," he whispered brokenly. "Please forgive me." For a long moment, only rain answered. Then Clara smiled sadly. Not cruelly, not angrily. Sadly. "You stayed afraid," she whispered. Tears streamed down Elias's face. I loved you. I know. The fire around her brightened softly, though no heat came from it. You loved me, Clara continued. But when death opened its mouth, you loved life more. Elias lowered his head. Because it was true. And truth hurt more than any horror Highway 9 had shown him. The fog around them shifted again. Now Elias saw other figures standing in the whiteness. Dozens. Perhaps hundreds. Silent people lining both sides of the road. Drivers. Passengers. Lost souls. All trapped in the final moments they could not release. Highway 9 was not cursed. It was remembered. Every death remained there, echoing endlessly through fog and rain. Elias realized then why the road never ended. Because guilt never ended. The man in black walked toward the burning wreck and stood beside Clara's window. She waited for you, he said quietly. Elias looked up. What? For a long time. Clara lowered her eyes sadly. I thought you'd come back. The words broke something final inside him. Elias collapsed forward onto the wet road, sobbing violently. Years of grief, denial, insomnia, loneliness, all of it had been built upon a lie he told himself to survive. He had never truly believed the crash was unavoidable. Deep down, he always knew. He had abandoned her. Not out of cruelty. Out of fear. And fear was enough. The rain began falling harder now. The flames around the wreck dimmed slowly. Clara's figure flickered weakly inside the car. Elias looked up desperately. No. Her eyes met his one final time. You have to let go now. I can't. Yes, you can. The man in black stepped backward into the fog. His face had begun changing. Growing younger. Becoming Elias again. The terrified version from the night of the crash. The version that ran. The version that died. Elias realized then that the figure had never been punishing him. It had been guiding him, trying endlessly to bring him back to this memory. Back to truth. Because only truth could end the road. Clara smiled faintly. I was never the one keeping you here. The fire vanished. The wreck began dissolving into mist. No, Elias reached toward her desperately. Please don't go. You already said goodbye once, Clara whispered. Then she disappeared. The road became silent again. Elias stood alone in the rain. For the first time since entering Highway 9, the fog no longer frightened him. Because now he understood it. The fog was memory. And memory only held power when resisted. The man in black stood several feet away, almost fully transformed into Elias himself. You know what happens now, he said softly. Elias looked down the endless road. The fog had begun thinning. Far away beyond the pale mist, he could see faint morning light breaking across the horizon. Dawn. After all these years, dawn. Elias smiled weakly through tears. I was so tired. I know. The older Elias extended a hand. For a moment, the two versions of the same soul stood facing one another beneath the rain. Then Elias took the hand. The world changed instantly. The fog began dissolving, like breath against glass. The road cracked apart into drifting light. The trees faded into silver dust. The endless night slowly surrendered to pale morning sky, and somewhere far away, a radio signal returned. Clear, stable, human. Visibility improving across Highway 9 this morning. The voice sounded distant now. Small. Alive. Elias felt warmth touch his face for the first time in years. Sunlight. Real sunlight. The older version of himself had vanished completely. Only Elias remained. Not whole. Not forgiven. But finally, honest. The road beneath him disappeared. The rain stopped. And before the last of the fog carried him away, Elias heard Clara's voice one final time. Soft. Close. At peace. You can rest now. Then Highway 9 remembered him no longer.